Okay, so if you checked out our video when it came to the 2024 simulation of our model, we told you guys in the fundamental factors section that we were going to build a model when it came to coaching. So here we are. Here's going to be the model, and we're going to walk you through the process on building this model when it comes to coaching in the NFL. So I want to first bring your attention down to the red tab down at the bottom where it that represents regular season win percentage. We want to make your eyes move to the left where we have our data. And in the first step of every model, you want to collect your data and you want to analyze it. So the first step of collecting the data, what we did is we collected all these stats from the 2023 all the way to the 2019 season. So for each year, some of them are going to be career numbers. So as you can see, we'll walk you through it. The red numbers are going to be regular season win percentage. And then the next one's going to be playoff win percentage. And then next, you're going to have simple rating system. So this is from profootballreference.com, sorry. And then to the right, you're going to have OSRS and DSRS, which is offensive and defensive. And when it comes to those rating systems, we're going to eliminate these going forward because it just combines into that SRS, and that's a better number. It's going to be better for our data as well. To the right, you're going to see what's in yellow is going to be Pro Bowls, All Pros, and then challenge percentage throughout their career. So those are career numbers. That's why they are labeled in gold or in silver. Excuse me, gold or yellow. And we just want to show you that because we'll show you in the future as we go along or in these next couple steps. Then the next four are going to be penalty stats. And it's not that we're using all four. We just want to, I didn't know which one would be the best one. And we should use one because that's very, I guess I would say it's a good sign of discipline when it comes to coaching, and whether the less penalties or less penalty yards means that the coach is very well disciplined when he comes to for, not to kill the word, but disciplining his football team. All the way to the far right are going to be more gold or yellow, and that's going to be Super Bowl wins, conference titles, and then Coach of the Year awards. So, like I said, we did this for the last 5 years, 2023 all the way to 2019. We'll touch on it very briefly, as you can see. And that's just us, remember, collecting our data. And then next, we're going to analyze it. And how do we analyze it? We put it all together and we take the names off of it. And this is what you see here. Just like I said, the SRS would be the only one left over when it comes to that rating system. We eliminated the offensive and defensive just to make it a little bit easier because it molds into that SRS number anyways. One thing I do want to tell you guys is you don't have to, if you want to copycat this, you don't have to do it on coaching. I'm doing it for coaching. That way, when you subscribe to Grandstand Sports Data and you do watch our weekly videos when it comes to the NFL, and I show you that coaching factor, this is the model that's going to be used for that. So, just to give the audience basically a tutorial and then also, something fun to walk through as the season goes on. So here are all the stats. These are for the last 5 years, and we take the name. We want to make this basically faceless, right? We want to take the names out of it. Just like if you subscribe to us and you hear us in almost every single video, the main purpose of a model is to make us unbiased as possible, right? Make us unbiased as we can when it comes to analyzing sports. So these were just basically the last 5 tabs that you've seen accumulated into one. So we can move on to our regression analysis. Now, to do the regression analysis, in layman's terms, this is a way of using these variables to build an algorithm. That's the best way I can say it in layman's terms. So let's go ahead and do that with these stats. Now, remember, you can use different stats. You can use team stats. You can use whatever. You can replace these with different sports, different stats, different whatever you want. Do you want to measure rainfall? You can do whatever you want with this. But I'm just trying to give the point across here. First, we'll go to the data tab, move on to data analysis, and we're going to go down to regression. See, I already have it set. I basically walked through this already, but I wanted to basically walk through it so I can make it as crisp as possible when going through this video because I just didn't want to make it wonky and last too long. I wanted to kind of get to the point, and if you guys needed any, more information, you could just simply pause the video and get right to it. So when you see the Y range or the input, the Y range, that's going to be our target variable. What does this mean, target variable? Basically, what it's saying is I want an output. I want these stats to build an algorithm that will make one output. And my output, I want to be regular season win percentage. I wanted to basically just measure who's going to win based on the money line. So I only need a win percentage as an output for two coaches when they're going head to head. That's all I needed. So as you can see from B2 to B163, we're using the regular season win percentage as our target variable. And then as you can see from C to N, from 2 down to 163, so all the available data. I'll do it for you here right now. That way, you can see everything. So for our target, I'm going to use the regular season win percentage. I'm going to use all our data. And then we're going to use the rest of our data to basically build that algorithm. Okay? Then here is output range. This I put it right here because it's just going to shoot our results. Some people will, I think this is the default where it says new worksheet, and all this is it creates another sheet down here giving the result. I'd like to have it on the same page, that way we can just walk through it together. Hit OK, we're good to go. Now, there are a few things that I do want to show you when it comes to this and how to read the model. First is going to be these two. And this is basically, I would call it in layman's terms, and that's how I'm going to speak, is in layman's terms, because not everybody watching this is probably a data scientist. I'm far from a data scientist. We have someone like that at Grandstand Sports Data, so I'm very basic with this. But right here at R square and adjusted R square, this is basically how compatible those variables, so these right here, are compatible with our target variable, which is the regular season win percentage. And it's at a great rate. Think about like 96%, 95%. So just on that, this is a pretty decent model. But remember, we had better goals than that. We wanted to knock these down to one stat, and we kind of want to get the best possible results as we can. So we take it a step further. Here's a few other things that we look at. We look at F and significance to F. And basically what those are is you want to target a high F stat with a tiny significance level. And why? Because it takes out the variables that happen by accident. We don't want any by accident. We want stats that correlate to our regular season win percentage and make it happen. So this actually fits the bill pretty good. As you can see, low significance and a high F stat. Now I would say it's past those two tasks. It needs to pass one more test, and it would be this, the p-value test. And these you want to be anything that is 0.05 or lower. So the ones that are not, I would eliminate, and the ones that are, I would not eliminate. Now, I am going to break the rule here. Playoff win percentage. I think that this is a pretty good number or a stat to coincide with what we're looking for, because in a way, if you have regular season success, you get to the playoffs. The number doesn't show that, so we'll just put a bookmark on that. We won't use that right now, or we will use it, but I just want to let you guys know it doesn't pass the test that we're looking for. Next one would be SRS. That does pass the test, right? 0.05. This is well below 0.05, so that passes the test. Pro Bowls also passes the test. All Pros, again, also passes the test. Challenge percentage passes the test. Then we have penalties per game, also passes the test. Now this is where we start not passing the test. So from penalty per play, penalty yards per game, penalty yards per play, and then finally Super Bowls, conference titles, and Coach of the Year all do not pass the test. So I'm going to label these in red, and we're going to eliminate these in our next illustration. We're just going to roll with these right here, and then we're going to test it again and see how good our model is. Well, I've already done that. Right here in the regular season win percentage, you can see from here. We eliminated those stats. We're moving on with only the stats here. We're going to do our regression analysis again. We already know how to do this. I already walked you through it. We're going to do it again. As you can see, from B2 to B163, you kind of get the hint, but now we're not doing it to N, mixing it down to H. We do not want the output range to be too far. I want to get it within the picture, so K will do just good enough. And boom. Now let's look at those same things that we were looking at in the first illustration. Now we're at about 95% and 95%, a tad bit lower, right? But when we're looking at the F stat, look at how high it is now. It was at 300 and something in the last tab. It's almost up to 600 and almost doubled, while its significant F has dropped lower. So these numbers are showing you that this is no accident and that it actually coincides with this model 95% of the time with no accidental situation. Next will be the P values, right, that we looked at. And these P values are basically all SRS. Remember in the last one, it did pass the test. Now, because of the data and how it skews, it doesn't, but we're still keeping it. Pro Bowl makes it. All pros make it. Challenge percentage makes it. And then penalties per game. Just like in the last one, it did pass the test. It didn't here, but we're keeping this algorithm. We like this one. It's passed almost every single test, as you can see from the yellow. Put everything in yellow, that way you can understand. So it's passed all three tests when it comes to the regression. Boom, boom, boom. Now, our next step, before we leave here, and this is more of a future situation, or we're going to cover it in the next steps, but this is what we want to do. We want to put our standard deviation for our regular season win percentage. And how we do that, put the formula for standard deviation. I'm going to take all of the data available. And we'll show you why we're doing that coming up. Now, with all this data, We figured out our model. We figured out what we want to do. And our next thing is going to be to copy and paste. We want to copy and paste the formula. The coefficient column here is going to be our formula. So basically our algorithm, for lack of a better term. 2024 coach. I set this data up already. And if you don't know what this is, I'll get into it very briefly. But this is what you would do when you're trying to build your model. What we did is we took the 2024 coaches now. Some of them are not the same as 2023, right? Some guys get fired, some guys get hired, yada, yada. What we did was we kept their career win percentage, so their numbers and their formulas or then their records, and it created their regular season win percentage. It created their playoff win percentage. Their SRS we went with last year, even if they weren't the coach of the team. So they were inherited a team with that simple rating system. And that's just for the first game. I want you to know that the stats labeled in gray, they're going to be updated every single week. And you're going to ask why. Well, on a week-to-week basis, the SRS will change. Pro Bowls won't, right? Because in yellow, it's a career stat. So this is over his career. You don't name Pro Bowlers every week. At the end of the season, you do. All pros, same situation, but the challenges do. Some coaches may do a week one challenge, some may not, but it usually does change. So you want to update that every week. And then also penalties per game, right? Teams have penalties here and there. So you're going to have that as a 2024. It needs to be consistently updated every single week. Now you may ask, what about regular season win percentage, right? Don't we have to change that every single week? No, it's going to be our target variable. So all these variables here are going to be building that algorithm to change that output on its own. We'll get into that more in a second. Now, what we want to do is we basically want to build that formula. So we go to equal, do the intercept first, add. Now we're going to want to put money signs because we want the formula to stick. And what I mean by that is that if we don't put money signs next to them, what it will do is basically run down the column as you change coaches. I know it's hard to explain, but if you're new to Excel, it's kind of hard to explain, but people who have been using Excel, you'll understand what I'm saying. Now, basically, all we want to do is match. So playoff win percentage times the playoff win percentage coefficient that we ran in our algorithm. Close the parentheses. Remember, we want to put our money signs. We'll show you, well, we basically explain the reason. And we'll just go through this, SRS. And I can't stress enough how important the money signs are. You could really mess up that, I guess you would say, the model, because you're not putting the money signs and sticking the formula. I know I'm not using the correct terms, but I was going to show you, you know what, I will show you. I'm going to use one that doesn't have the money signs, and you will understand why in a few seconds. I'll use a few. I'll just go through it so that it's a little bit faster. Challenges. And then it also, when it comes to troubleshooting, just look through the video. You can pause the video, you can rewind the video, whatever you need to basically get it done. So perfect, right? This is the rating system, or the rating in terms of regular season win percentage. This data from John Gannon for coaches that have the same similar data, so 0 playoff experience, minus 5.4 SRS, only coaching 1 Pro Bowler in his career, 0 All Pros, and 100% with his challenge rate, with a 5.94 penalty per game, that produces a 45.4 based on our algorithm. Now I'm going to drag it down. Now watch, it's not going to work. See, they start getting wonky. Why? Because look up here at the formula as we go down. See how the T's with no money sign, they go down, they drip. That's why we want the money sign, because they will stick to this algorithm here. That's why the money sign is so important. So I'm going to go back and do that. I think that would have been one of the huge troubleshooting problems. I know when I was learning for the first time, that was one of mine, and it was absolutely killing me, and it was wasting time. So kind of wanted to nip that in the bud for you guys. So boom, there you go. And now boom, we dragged it down, and that's what we have. Now, before we move on, that's right, we're not done. We built the algorithm. We're loving it right now, but we need to know head-to-head matchups. We need to know a bunch of things. We want to answer a lot of questions, especially when it comes to the sports betting world. Now, here's another thing, like we said earlier, from when we wanted to do standard deviation for win for wins in the regular season. Down here in the column at the bottom of our table, we want to list a number right across just to identify what column a certain thing is, a certain stat is, and that's because of a VLOOKUP that we will be doing in the future. So we got through that. We did the numbers at the bottom. We did the formula. Let's move on to what is called a dashboard. Now, a dashboard, I know it looks a little crazy. You would want to build this, I guess you would say before, because you're trying to answer questions, right? We're going to walk through this. You can copy this, but I did this as I was going through my model just to clean it up a bit and make it a little bit more easier. But there's nothing special here. So let's start. Basically listed the teams. And the first rule that you want to do is the teams that are listed here and how they're listed, you want to match this right here, this first column. You want it to match it identical. Not in terms of color or anything, just the text involved. Why? Because we're going to move on to our next step, which is going to be win percentage, right? We wanted to figure out the win percentage when it came to our model. This is how we can find it out and figure it out and plug it in. We're going to do what's called a VLOOKUP. You're going to look up the value. You're going to look up this value, which would be the Baltimore Ravens at the time. And this is the first matchup of the week 1 slate. So we're just going to go through this with you. After C3, you want to do table array, and it's the table over here for the 2024 coaches. Boom, it highlights. Comma again to get to the column index number. What number do we want inputted? Well, we want our rating, remember? And remember I said you wanted to do this drop down here with the numbers across representing each column. Well, 17 is going to represent our rating. And we want it to be an exact match, so it's going to be false. Close the parentheses or the brackets. And boom, 66.6 is Jim Harbaugh. Is that the truth? I'm sorry, John Harbaugh. Hoo-hoo, it's getting late for me. You can handle the truth. 66.6 right there. So we're correct. Now we want to do the same thing for Andy Reid, right? We could just drag it nice and easy, but I'll walk you through it again. I just want to let you guys know too, this is a very simple model. This is not a hard model at all. There's usually, as you get better at using these models and implementing them and even building and optimizing on your own, you're going to get better at models. So anything that you want to get better at, I think it's pretty obvious. You'll learn and you'll get better at. So there it is for win percentage. Obviously, that's not clear. We could stop right there and say, hey, you know what? According to the model, Harbaugh is a better coach than Andy Reid. We could do that, right? But I don't know if that's enough for us. So what I will do is we'll move on to VAR. And VAR is just variance, and that is standard deviation. Didn't we hear that earlier? Well, let's move on to that. We want to do a normal distribution and so the probability is going to be random. We want random. So basically a random number. And then we want it to its mean. And its mean is going to be its average. Its average was the algorithm we just did. So D3. And then the standard deviation. Where did we put that? We put that in regular season wins. Up here. Found out the standard deviation of our regular season win percentage. We're going to close that up. Boom. That's just our variance. It's going to be used a little bit later. Just for right now, if you're not new to Excel and you're advanced at this, you know what it means. But for the people who don't, you'll see where we're going with this. We got to do the same for Mr. Andy Reid. Okay, and you recognize how it changes because it's a random number. I can go over here, just press one button and watch the VAR numbers. See, they always change because it's random, and it's random based on your standard deviation. And standard deviation is just basically your volatility. Now, how do we move on from here? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Sim tab. In the Sim tab, what you'll do is you'll put one team, so Baltimore, and then I'll put the other team, Kansas City. And we're actually going to run a simulation, a Monte Carlo simulation. Like I told you guys, us at Grandstand Sports Data, we basically would have been done right here where it came to win percentage, but we're going to move it on to like if you're building a real model. For us, we didn't want to make it this robust, but we did want to walk you through a tutorial of making your own model. When it comes to sim, we're going to put a reference number. So reference, and our reference is basically going to be this here for the Ravens, and then this here for the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so now we're running a Monte Carlo simulation. What I need you to do after that is put a 1 right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to basically run 1,000 games. And it's going to give us an average and give us a more better predictability than what we have right here. I hope that makes sense. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to fill. Series column. It's going to be linear, and it's column because we're going down the column. We want it to be 1,000 games. And that's what happens, 1,000 games all the way down the bottom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to select all the data. So we want to select it from here to here, all the way down to 1,000. Going to go to the data tab. We're going to do a what if analysis. And then we're going to go to data table. And then in the column input, because we're doing a column, we just want to put a naked cell. And what I mean by naked cell is anything that's empty. You really don't have to, you just need to populate something, but it needs to be an empty cell. Click OK. And this is what we have. We have 1,000 simulations to this game with the standard deviations, as you can see. So going all the way down, don't have to scroll all the way down, but I just kind of want to just prove the picture to you. 1,000. Perfect. So there you have the simulations. Now we want to figure out the results. So what we're going to do here equals again Baltimore. Equal again Kansas City. These are going to give us our results. What we want to do is we want to do an if function. What we're trying to figure out is how many times Baltimore will beat Kansas City. So if Baltimore's score or win percentage is greater than Kansas City's, that will be a 1, representing a win. If it's not, and it's lower, that'll represent 0, which will be a loss. Now, we want to do the exact same thing for Kansas City. If function, the logical test of if Kansas City is greater than Baltimore, it will be a win, it will be a loss. And I want you to notice where I did that. Notice how I did it side by side because of the first game, the first simulation. That will be the result of the first simulation. Well, now I'm going to drag it all the way down to match all 1,000. I'm probably killing your eyeballs right now, but I'm just showing the illustration. Boom, as you can see. Now, all the way down at the bottom, I just want to sum them up. Sorry about that. Sum. $517. Here will be sum. $474. So now that would be our result. We would do equals all the way down. This now divided by the times they play, right? And then equals. Now there are ways, faster ways to do this. I'm proven to go the slower route because remember, I want it to be a tutorial. I want it to be a step-by-step for those that, may not be that Excel savvy, I guess, for lack of a better word. Now look at that. Now we have a Monte Carlo simulation based on our algorithm, based on our formula, giving us a result that in these 1,000 games, Baltimore will beat the Kansas City Chiefs at about 50.6. What's the best part about this formula? I developed a slate down here. Look at what I can do in the blink of an eye. I can literally copy and paste Green Bay and Philadelphia, copy them, blast them, and the numbers change based on them because of the VLOOKUPs that we set up. Pretty good, right? Let's get back to this game, however. I want to move on. So we built the algorithm. We ran a Monte Carlo simulation. We basically done everything, right? Well, there's one spot of the, so basically what we did was we developed, we confirmed, and we optimized our model, all in that full swoop. Now what we want to do is deploy it. And by deploying it, you want to know, do I have an actual edge in what I am betting? So let's figure that out. When we go to teams, obviously we're doing teams that are represented here. And you want to know the result. We have the result, right? Here, right here. And remember, these numbers keep changing because of the Monte Carlo simulation and then also our variance. So all these numbers keep changing consistently, right? I'll put the 1 over here just out of, or 0 at it. Boom, see, they keep changing. They just keep changing. And that is it's based on the Monte Carlo simulation. Now odds. And odds, we're going to highlight a little bit. I'm going to put these in like an orange color or pink, whatever, however it appears to you. Now odds are going to be the odds in the actual football game, the real odds in the betting line. So what we're trying to do in this betting odds box is basically compare our results to the betting odds on the market and see if we have an actual edge. That's basically what we're trying to do here. Sounds simple, but I guess it's far from simple, but we're going to try to make it easy for you. So the first step here is, what are the odds of this actual football game? I think from when I looked earlier, I can pop it up now on my phone. Sorry, there should have been more prepared, but like I said, walk through. So here we go. I got 130 plus 130 for the Ravens, and I got minus 150 for the Chiefs. Now, what we're trying to do is we're going to basically take that American odd, and that's what it's called. It's called American odds, and we want to put them into a probability. And there's an equation that does that. And then what we're gonna do is take our odds, measure it against the betting odds, and see if we have an edge. Now, here's how you do the formula. We're going to do an if function again. So if we want to do the logical test. And then this is a formula that I got from the internet. So basically just copy and paste it. It's basically the equation that takes implied odds, or it takes American odds and translate them into implied odds. Copy the formula. The formula is hard to learn. I mean, you have to have years of experience, whether it's in betting and just coming across this formula over and over again to understand it. But this is why we have Excel. This is why we're trying to accomplish, basically whether we have an edge or not. So there's the first part. Remember, I said just copy it down if you're going to be using it in a different way. But you always want to do this. I would not slack on this at all when it comes to comparing your odds to the market. That's how you know if you have an actual edge or not. Some people will just walk away and say, oh, you know what? It says that this team's supposed to win, so that's what I'm going with. Well, that's not how. That's basically not how you measure your edge. So, of course, somewhere in the formula, I goofed up. Let's take a look. It's better than 0. It's 100 divided by e plus 100. Boom. Okay. And we can just drop that down here. So it's the same formula for the both of them. And you're going to say, well, wait a minute here. How does the market have 43% for the Ravens and then 60% for the Kansas City Chiefs? That's more than 100%. Welcome to sports betting is what I will say to you. That 3.5% that you're seeing there is called the VIG, or the commission. that the sports book charges you. No odds in any game are going to add up to 100% because they need to charge a commission. Some sports books it's 3.5%, some sports books it's 4, some sports books it's 4.5. So you're learning something here. Our odds are going to add up to 100, but remember theirs do not. Now, how do we figure out if we have the edge? Simply take our results, our odds, and figure out the difference between the market, and this is what we have. So we have an actual edge for the Baltimore Ravens in this game. It's telling us that our edge of 51.8%, you can see that in both places, either here or here, that we predict that they're going to win as the underdog, which is better than the market, and it's an 8% edge in that specific game. I like to put summary here. Why do I put the summary in this box here? Well, it helps me track the slate, or in other words, record keep, right? We always need a record keep. So from this Baltimore statistic, you make it very, very easy for yourself. You put the result. This will track the result of the game. And then you want to track the edge. And boom. And what will we do? I'll simply copy, paste. On to the next game, copy, paste. That's how simple it is with this model. So, like I said, this is just a very basic, a very simple model. It's based on coaching, based on only coaching stats. It may not have an actual edge in the market. This is why we track. This is why we record. If you like this content, you find this content helpful, make sure to subscribe to Grandstand Sports Data. Remember, we're going to track this model throughout the year. Hopefully, it does something for us as we go along. We're going to build more models as we go along as well. It's not just going to be based on coaching. We're not only going to do just football either. We're going to do other sports, maybe basketball, so NBA. We were thinking baseball, but it was getting kind of crazy with football, so we slowed down on baseball. But maybe next year we will touch on baseball a little bit more. Hockey, of course. We basically try to tackle everything. But like I said, if you like this content, you want to see more of this content, make sure to hit the like button. Also, subscribe to Grandstand Sports Data. Watch us track this model throughout this whole NFL season. We're probably going to track it more and more often, even in upcoming years. It depends on the factors. Go to our factors videos where we show you fundamental factors. This is basically us putting a number to that fundamental factor and tracking it throughout the season to see if it gives us that slight edge. Also, what we're going to do is take some of the factors, put them together, and see which ones say if, Pittsburgh in this situation. Pittsburgh has an edge in coaching. Pittsburgh has an edge in this other department. Maybe it's, I don't know, team cohesion, whatever it is. If they have an edge in these two, what's the record of teams in the past that have that same edge and those same statistics? What's their record? So we're going to play along as we go, as we grow. Like I said, if you found this useful, please hit that like button and the subscribe. And thank you guys for tuning in.